The old motorcycle coughed one last time before dying in the middle of a lonely country road under the bright afternoon sun. Cars sped past without slowing down. Dust swirled through the warm air, and the woman standing beside the broken machine looked completely helpless. She wore simple jeans, a gray t-shirt, and an old riding jacket that hid every clue about who she really was. Just when she thought she would be stranded for hours, an aging pickup truck pulled over. A tired-looking single father climbed out with a small toolbox in one hand and grease stains already covering his work clothes. He had no idea that the stranger standing before him owned companies worth billions of dollars. He only saw someone who needed help. That simple decision would change both of their lives forever. Before we begin, if you believe kindness still exists, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Kindness Legacy. Every act of kindness deserves to be remembered. The man's name was Colton Hayes, and life had never been easy for him. 4 years earlier, his wife had passed away after a long illness, leaving him alone to raise his 8-year-old daughter, Mercer. Every morning started before sunrise. He prepared breakfast, packed lunches, drove Mercer to school, and then spent long hours repairing motorcycles in a tiny garage that barely earned enough to pay the bills. Every evening ended with homework, dinner, laundry, and quiet prayers that tomorrow would somehow be easier. His garage wasn't famous. It wasn't even successful. The faded wooden sign outside had peeling paint, and customers usually came only because his prices were lower than everyone else's. Sometimes people couldn't even pay him, yet Colton still fixed their bikes because he understood what it meant to struggle. He believed that helping someone today might give them the strength to help another person tomorrow. That afternoon, he had just delivered a repaired motorcycle to a customer when he noticed the stranded rider beside the road. Most people would have continued driving. He didn't. The woman introduced herself only as Vivienne. She smiled politely but looked exhausted. Her motorcycle had suddenly lost power, and no repair shops were nearby. She had already called roadside assistance, but they estimated several hours before anyone could reach her. Colton simply nodded and knelt beside the engine. Years of experience allowed him to notice details others overlooked. A damaged fuel line, a clogged filter, and a loose ignition connection had combined to shut the motorcycle down completely. None of the problems were impossible to fix, but they required patience rather than expensive parts. For nearly an hour, Colton worked beneath the warm afternoon sunlight while sweat rolled down his forehead. Vivienne quietly watched from nearby. She noticed how carefully he handled every bolt and every wire. There was no frustration in his movements, only quiet determination. Every few minutes he wiped his hands with an old cloth before continuing. She also noticed something else. His phone rang several times, but each call lasted less than a minute. Every conversation was about his daughter. He reminded her to finish her homework, asked if she had eaten her snack, and promised he would be home before dinner. His voice changed completely whenever he spoke to Mercer. The tired mechanic suddenly sounded full of warmth and hope. Vivienne had spent years surrounded by successful people, powerful executives, and wealthy investors. Many claimed family came first. Few actually lived that way. Finally, the motorcycle roared back to life. The engine purred smoothly. Vivienne smiled. With genuine relief, she reached into her wallet and offered several $100s. Colton politely shook his head. He accepted only enough to cover the replacement parts he had used. He explained that charging more wouldn't feel right because the repair hadn't taken long. Vivienne stared at him in disbelief. People constantly tried to impress her once they discovered her wealth. Others tried to take advantage of her generosity. Yet this man, who clearly struggled financially, refused easy money from someone he believed was an ordinary traveler. Before leaving, she asked where his garage was. He scribbled the address onto a small receipt and wished her a safe journey. Neither of them realized fate had only just begun writing their story. Unknown to Colton, Vivienne wasn't an ordinary writer. Her full name was Vivienne Ashcroft, founder and majority owner of one of the nation's largest renewable technology companies. Newspapers regularly listed her among the richest women in the country. Yet despite her extraordinary success, her personal life remained painfully empty. Years earlier she had fallen deeply in love with a charming businessman who cared only about her fortune. The betrayal nearly destroyed her ability to trust anyone again. Since then, every relationship seemed complicated by fame, wealth, or hidden motives. Eventually she decided to disappear from luxury for a while. She dressed simply, She traveled alone. She never revealed her identity. She wanted to discover whether genuine kindness still existed in the world. Meeting Colton felt different from every encounter she had experienced. A week later, she quietly visited his garage. She pretended another motorcycle needed servicing. The garage looked exactly as she remembered. Old shelves overflowed with tools. Rusty fans struggled against the summer heat. Mercer sat in one corner finishing homework while occasionally helping organize small parts. Every customer who entered received the same warm smile. Vivienne returned several times over the next month. Each visit showed her another piece of Colton's character. One afternoon she saw him repair a delivery driver's motorcycle for free after learning the man couldn't afford the bill. Another day he secretly paid for an elderly customer's replacement tire without mentioning it. When heavy rain flooded a nearby neighborhood, Colton closed his garage early to help rescue furniture from damaged homes. No cameras followed him. No social media posts celebrated his generosity. He simply believed helping people was the right thing to do. Meanwhile, Colton remained completely unaware that newspapers regularly featured Vivienne on their front pages. Because he rarely watched television or followed business news, her face meant nothing to him. One sunny afternoon Vivienne arrived carrying homemade sandwiches. She claimed she had made too many. Colton thanked her, and together they shared lunch outside beneath the shade of an old oak tree while Mercer chased butterflies nearby. For the first time in years, Vivienne laughed freely. Not because someone entertained her. Because she finally felt accepted without expectations. Their friendship slowly deepened. They talked about childhood memories, favorite books, motorcycles, and dreams that life had quietly pushed aside. Colton admitted he once hoped to open a community training center where struggling teenagers could learn motorcycle repair instead of joining gangs or falling into crime. Financially, that dream seemed impossible. Vivienne listened carefully. She never interrupted. She simply remembered every word. Then disaster struck. Late one evening, faulty electrical wiring sparked a fire inside Colton's garage. Neighbors managed to call firefighters before flames spread to nearby buildings, but the garage itself suffered devastating damage. Most of the tools were destroyed. Several customer motorcycles burned beyond repair. Insurance covered almost nothing because the outdated policy had expired only weeks earlier. Standing in front of the blackened building the next morning, Colton felt defeated. Years of sacrifice had disappeared overnight. He worried less about himself than about disappointing customers and losing the only income supporting Mercer. Vivienne arrived shortly afterward. She watched silently as Colton comforted his frightened daughter instead of grieving over his own losses. That moment broke her heart. She knew she couldn't stay silent anymore. The following day, she invited Colton to attend what she described as a business meeting with someone interested in investing in community repair workshops. Curious but nervous, he agreed. The meeting took place inside an enormous corporate headquarters unlike anything he had ever seen. Employees greeted Vivienne with immediate respect. Security guards opened doors before she reached them. Executives stood the moment she entered the conference room. Only then did Colton begin realizing something extraordinary. Large portraits displayed throughout the building showed Vivienne receiving international business awards. Magazine covers featured her smiling beside world leaders. His eyes widened. Everything suddenly made sense. The simple traveler, the old motorcycle, the repeated visits. She had been hiding her identity all along. Vivienne gently explained everything. She apologized for keeping the truth secret. She admitted she had spent months searching for proof that kindness without selfish motives still existed. She confessed that Colton had restored something far more valuable than her motorcycle. He had restored her faith in people. Then she placed a folder before him. Inside were legal documents establishing a fully funded motorcycle training academy in his name. The academy would provide free education, apprenticeships, scholarships, and job placement for disadvantaged young adults. Another section detailed complete reconstruction of his garage using modern equipment. None of it required repayment. It wasn't charity. It was an investment in someone who had already invested countless acts of kindness into complete strangers. Colton couldn't speak. Tears slowly filled his eyes. For years he had prayed only for enough strength to keep moving forward. He had never imagined someone had been quietly watching every compassionate choice he made. Months later, the New Hayes Community Motorcycle Academy officially opened. Teenagers who once believed they had no future now learned valuable skills. Former students eventually opened businesses of their own. Families escaped poverty. Dreams slowly became reality. Maris proudly watched her father teach every class with the same patience he once showed repairing a stranger's motorcycle beside a dusty road. As for Vivienne, she visited often. Not because she owned the academy. Because she finally found the peaceful life she had searched for across boardrooms, luxury hotels, and private airplanes. Love didn't appear through expensive gifts or glamorous parties. It arrived through honesty, compassion, shared purpose, and a single act of kindness offered without expecting anything in return. Over time, friendship quietly blossomed into something much deeper. Neither rushed the journey. Both understood that true love grows strongest when built upon trust rather than wealth. Their story became proof that life's greatest blessings often arrive disguised as ordinary moments. Sometimes helping a stranger beside the road isn't merely fixing a motorcycle. Sometimes it's repairing two lonely hearts at exactly the right time. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes kindness can still change lives, and subscribe to Kindness Legacy for more inspiring stories that remind us hope is never truly lost. Yellow Heart Special Request. Before this story ends, comment with one word, kindness, if you believe a single selfless act can completely change someone's future. As the sun set behind the rebuilt garage, Colton watched Maris laughing while students worked together on motorcycles that would soon carry them toward better lives. Vivienne stood quietly beside him, smiling not because of the fortune she had built, but because she had finally found something money could never buy, a family created by compassion, a future built on trust, and a love discovered through the simplest act of kindness. In the end, the motorcycle was never the greatest thing Colton repaired. The greatest thing he repaired was a heart that had almost forgotten how to believe. And perhaps that is the most powerful reminder of all. Kindness given freely has a way of returning when we least expect it, often carrying miracles far greater than anything we could have imagined.